Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
Well, the Calgary Flames find a way to lose once again as they fall to the Las Vegas, or I guess it's just the Vegas, Golden Knights. Final score 4-2. I said it on Blue Sky. This officiating in this game was ugly. The Flames played 20 minutes of hockey. Not great. Flames record, not great. I don't feel very great, folks. Like, that was ugly. But as I said, welcome to Game Over Calgary. My name's Conrad Krausert. And the Flames lose their third in a row. Have not won a game since the opening game of the season, where they needed extra time to defeat the Edmonton Oilers. Where do we even start here, guys? Like, I know I'm going to do my recap. I know I'm going to start going through how I felt about this game, but last year I felt there was hope. I felt that, this team had something to play for and that people were progressing. I don't necessarily feel that way this year. And yes, we're 4 games in. Can't judge a season off 4 games. But after a game that probably is more of a measuring stick than it needs to be that early in the season, it's starting to feel more doom and gloom than I felt even last year when it was me and Matt DeMille talking about face-off percentages and Flames failures on special teams. Because the song's starting to sound a lot the same as it was to start last year. And this was supposed to be a year of progression from a team that missed the playoffs by 1 point. But there is no progression. If anything, there is regression. And, that's not how we were supposed to be feeling this season as fans. And whether that is the sophomore slump that some people are pointing at with Dustin Wolf, I'm not looking that way. Whether that was 60% of the roster playing above their heads, which I think is more similar to what's going on, the optimism is starting to fade, and I don't think that's just me here on Game Over. I think that's kind of the feeling I've got looking around all of social media, traditional media. I just think that's kind of the overall vibe. But let's head into the recap in case you missed anything. If you missed the first period, you missed most of the Calgary Flames playing this game today. And it was someone who started out trying to make me eat my words. Michael Backlund, as the Flames chased down a puck in neutral zone, forced a turnover from Jack Eichel. Backlund bumps it back to Weegar, and Mackenzie Weegar, absolute filthiness on the fake shot, passes it over to Backlund. Backlund, top cheese on the starting goaltender of today's game, Aiden Hill, the Calgary native, as the broadcast so often like to remind us, former Calgary Canuck, if I believe my brain remembers correctly. Flames up 1-0. Was a brilliant move from Weegar on that, who was playing on his off wing today, as we were so often reminded of going into today, because to insert Daniil Miramanov into the lineup, we decided putting Mackenzie Weegar on his offside was the best way to do it. We'll talk about that later. And then Blake Coleman, his second goal of the year. They're officially saying it was unassisted, despite the fact that I thought there was enough there to give the assist off to the Flames' other forward checking on the play, Sam Honzek. Official statisticians disagree. Coleman takes the turnover, snaps it over Hill. Flames are up 2-0. But the Flames made the mistake of knocking a starting goalie out of the game. Officially a lower body injury for Adin Hill. He is replaced to start the second by a goalie I'm sure will win the Vezina based off his performance today. Or at least he'll be in the running. Akira Schmid. No, I'm not being serious, by the way, Flames fans. If Akira Schmid wins the Vezina, I will eat my hat. But after 23 minutes of solid play, the Vegas Golden Knights remind us why they are the team to beat in the Pacific Division since they have joined the league. And it's some guy that might have been wearing the Flaming C, if sources are to be believed, if there was a little bit more money thrown his way and more faith in the surgery he wanted to get. Jack Eichel, he opens the scoring off a pass from Mike Stone. Rasmus overskates to the blue line. Stone and Eichel play give and go. Wolf stops the initial shot. Eichel follows up the rebound, tucks it home. Tough look for number 4 in today's game. The only Flames pairing on the defensive end that stayed together did not look very good there. Only goal scored in the second period, but the Vegas Golden Knights dominated, turning the shots around 12-11. However, if you looked over at somewhere like Money Puck, the Flames were still favored to win this game. I don't know what the statistical model was looking at because that was very, very different than what I was watching on the ice. In fact, talking about Money Puck, at that point, the Flames deserved to win a meter was at 70%. We're up 2-2. What Money Puck doesn't take into account is that the Flames can't play against a backup goaltender to save their life, and they don't have one. But anyways, Flames are up. Let's see what the third period had to bring. Oh wait, it's 3 Vegas Golden Knights goals. And guess who's on the ice for the first of them? Daniil Maramanov loses not one, not 2 men, and allows the puck to get back to the point. Caden Korzak assists to Hurdle, and Mitchie Marner. Good to see that he's in our conference now. Thanks, Toronto, not getting him signed. Anyways, score tied 2-2. And remember that guy who I said could have been a Calgary Flame? He scores again. Jack Eichel from Barbashev and Lausanne, who we'll talk about Lausanne a little bit later. But guess who's on the ice? Once again, number 62, Daniil Miramanov. Yeah. That's the guy we had to insert into the lineup today. And then the salt in the wound, Zane Parekh unable to hold the zone off a hot pass from Nazem Kadri. Goes all the way down. Eventually it pops out to Tomas Hurdle. Assist to Marner and William Karlsson. And that's all she wrote. The Flames, it was 2-0. The worst lead in hockey. Fall once again 4-2. Am I wrong in my attitude here, Flames fans? Like, despite the fact that all these statistical analysis say The Flames should have won this game. They had the better scoring chances, including Rasmus Andersson missing another open net. Have to say. I'm going to pull up some offensive zone shift starts here, because we're going to talk some stats before we go into the next few periods. So, the guy with the most offensive zone shift starts in today's game, and we saw him playing more at center than I think we have for a lot of his career, was Matt Coronado. Followed by Kadri. Matt Gridden only had 5 offensive zone starts. And then here's where my issue with the coaching staff comes in. Defensive zone shift starts. Daniil Maramanov, who, by everyone's account, I don't think anyone will protest me on this, is a defensive liability at best. 7 defensive zone starts for number 62 in the red and yellow today. I'm screaming internally so I don't scream on the outside, folks. Another stat I just want to also draw Flames fans to. As I said, don't want to blame it on a sophomore slump, because I think that is letting a lot of guys that aren't playing well off the hook. Decimals, goals saved above expected, minus 0.88, almost a full goal saved above expected in the negative. Boy, oh boy, I hate this. Boy, oh boy, I hate our defensive pairings. And boy, oh boy, let's talk about that in period number 2. What in the hell was that? From me reading at night, or at whenever the lines were released. I know I talked about needing to shuffle the defense, but the one pairing I said you should maybe leave alone, because at least they're statistically good, according to Derek Wills and the rest of the bright hockey minds at Sportsnet. That's the one you elect to shift up to try and play someone who's been poor this season, to play with your guy that every smart hockey insider man brainiac thinks is going to be the next superstar here in Calgary, in Zane Parekh. You pair him with Joel Hanley? What are you doing? It's ineptitude. Is Joel Hanley a perfectly fine 6th defenseman in the NHL? And that's probably where he deserves to be, is on the third pairing. Yes, but if that is what you think you need to pair with Zane Parekh trying to break a losing streak, trying to get this kid some confidence, we've tried nothing and we're all out of ideas. It's a meme at this point. And boy, oh boy, did our first line look like garbage. Why are we trying to brainiac this whole Nazem Kadri first line thing? I understand Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost are building some chemistry, but we won a game with Morgan Frost not playing with Joel Farabee at all. So since we've made that change, We have lost 3 straight games. Just because you got the line blender doesn't mean you need to use it. And boy, oh boy, am I the only one seeing Nazem Kadri's game today and almost grimacing? Like, I thought he looked awful. Am I out to lunch saying this, Flames fans who are joining me here in chat? Like, yes, the Flames just played against one of the best teams in the Western Conference, where we are expected to be one of the worst in the league. But I want something to latch onto, to be happy about. And there is not much. At this point, what development are we doing with Zane Parekh? Because if we're going to pair him up with Joel Hanley and just say, go out there and make your mistakes, I'd rather send him back to the Q or the O at this point. Saginaw, you want this guy back? At least let him build some confidence and then go play in the World Juniors this year. And speaking of Zane Parekh, he took a headshot today from Jeremy Lauzon. That is Colton Sissons. I apologize. I thought that was Lauzon, but no, it was Sissons. How does that elbow get downgraded? Elbow got them one of the most pieces of padding that NHL players wear, wielded like a weapon and making contact with the orbital, not the chest. But that's only a 2-minute minor for elbowing. Department of Player Safety, I expect to hear your $5,000 fine verdict tomorrow. Other stats to look at. The Calgary Flames got cratered in the faceoff dot yet again, only winning 43.1% of faceoffs. We're going to go through our centers once again. Michael Backlund, 26 total shifts today. Operated at 53.3% in the faceoff dot. Well done, that's improvement. Morgan Frost, 42.9%. Second line center, by the way. Connor Zary, 50%. Sure. Nazem Kadri, 44.4%. Sure. All the wingers that came in and took 1 or 2 faceoffs, not great. Including Matt Coronado, operated at 33%. No one else had a faceoff percentage. And I knew coming into this season, as most Flames fans I'm assured did, that this was not going to likely be a step forward for a lot of this Flames team. But I did not expect the regression that I'm seeing on the ice. The fact that outside of Dustin Wolf, Zane Parekh, and I'd argue Matt Coronado, even though he was a -3 today, yikes! Nobody else seems to play like they give a damn. And maybe that's the difference. Let's talk about that in period number 3. Last year, people seemed to care. Up and down the lineup, there was belief that what this Flames team was doing was right. That this team was starting to all pull the rope in the same direction. I miss that Calgary Flames roster. And maybe we're missing some of that right now because, you know, Flames have one of the most congested opening rosters to start the season out of anybody against some of the most difficult opponents that anybody in the NHL has the pleasure of facing. But at some point, the excuses need to stop. And do I think it's going to be tomorrow when they go to Utah? Likely seeing Devin Cooley's first appearance of the year? I don't necessarily think so. And this comes off to after a day where I got to go and see the Cavalry FC Partners meeting, where it was positivity and a lot of the front office from Cavalry saying and talking about how much buy-in the players had, how much belief they had in each other. That's a team that just won a championship last year and is trying to push for another this year. So I don't know. It just feels like something's wrong or something's off. And usually when you say that this early in the season, it's not a great sign. And generally it comes at the cost of a head coach. But we do have to remind ourselves that this team did just extend Ryan Huska. A 2-year extension that hasn't even kicked in. And I'm not going to say that this is a squad that's already tuned out Ryan Huska and co. Or that, hey, maybe Dave Lowry was the wrong assistant coach to bring in. So I don't know if any of that's the case. But a concerning trend is starting to happen. And whether that needs to be addressed by the coaching staff or people wearing letters on the front of their jerseys, I'm not sure. And how many people on this squad are going to listen to Nazem Kadri if he stands up right now after he just went -3 in today's game? As I said, looked brutal, took a penalty. And even a guy that I've praised as being one of the guys that I've really enjoyed watching this year, Matvei Gridin, he looked irrelevant today. The 6 guys I noticed were the 6 guys playing in the bottom 2 lines. I'm not happy with where this went, chat. And I'm going to be completely honest in saying that I'm not confident that things are going to change. But anyways, that's kind of my whole rant and rave section. And, you know, as I said, don't love playing one of your best defensemen on his offside just so you can get your 9th best defenseman in the organization some playing time. I think that's an easy solve tomorrow in Utah. But something that's just, as I said, I'm not done with my rant and rave section here, folks. We lost Ilya Solovyov, a 24-year-old with nothing but upside, to keep Daniil Maramanov, who has shown absolutely less than nothing, and after one game in the lineup, is likely going to rotate his way out. A right-handed defenseman who only plays on the right, so you are forced to shift Mackenzie Weegar to the other side, might I add. It just doesn't make sense to a guy that's been watching a lot of hockey for, let's call it 30 years on this planet. Matt C. mentioning in chat that current standings have us getting pick number 3, so we're in those lottery balls. Hooray! If I was truly on Team Tank, I'd probably be celebrating right now. As that gets better, to, as Tokay number 1 put it. Wouldn't have happened under Captain McKenna. But as hard as I want this Flames team to go and get Gavin McKenna, I don't want games like this where it feels like the Flames are not trying to play hockey anymore. Where guys that are supposed to be leading this squad feel like the anchor dragging it down. And I know you guys probably don't like seeing and listening to this when I am at this level of negativity, but as I said, I just feel it's kind of inevitable. And no one wants to feel that talking about the team that they've loved and will continue to love regardless of results. Because when I'm trying to listen to some other people talk about their post games, and like the thing that they're praising is Joel Farabee blocking shots and putting his body in harm's way. If that's what we're celebrating, the hole's a lot deeper than we think it is. So I don't have any questions in chat for me yet. And I did forget about my homework. Yeah, I graduated university somehow with forgetting about homework like this, but we'll do this, we'll read along. Because there are 2 players currently on waivers. I don't think either of them will be claimed, which is Donovan Sabrango and Igor Afanaseyev from the Senators and Sharks. A guy that Toronto claimed was Caden Primo, I apologize. And that's claimed by Toronto. That's a playoff team that finished way ahead of us, have less waiver priority than us. So that's somebody that Calgary could have claimed that was back on October 6th. Obviously, the Leafs also needed a goaltender with Joseph Woll taking his personal time. You have to think that might be someone who finds their way back onto waivers, and hey, maybe the Flames are waiting for that to actually happen. Because, you know, that could be the case. That's their guy, and they say, you know what, let's allow that to go through. Georgi Romanov, who went to Springfield out of St. Louis. I don't think he was really somebody that anybody had eyes on. Ville Husso That's a guy who nobody really wants. But is an NHL goaltender in the past, and hey, doesn't have a great contract. I know I've probably awakened the spirits that is the denim man next door saying the name Billy Huso. One lightly used Alexander Georgiev. That's a name I'm okay the Flames let go. Oh, and Kevin Rooney, he cleared waivers. That's another name that I'm kind of interesting seeing. But here's a name that the Flames should have claimed, in my opinion, that cleared waivers. He's kind of that third goalie in that Boston system that everyone seems to think is just pumping out goaltending prospects. Michael DiPietro. That is a guy the Calgary Flames should have jumped all over back on October 5th. So the fact that he went unclaimed by 32 other teams, and hey, there's maybe like 3 or 4 teams that actually need a goalie. That's one that I would like to have heard been a fly on the wall with the Flames. Cal Peterson is another one, former, I believe, LA King, if my name and recognition is correct. Oh, Tyler Pitlick's still in the league. Today I learned. Capo Kakinen went to Laval. Nico Dawes, that's another name that I was kind of looking at as a guy that's kind of been that middling goaltender. Mads Sogard out of Ottawa. He's played games in the NHL. Can't be any worse than Devin Cooley. Colton Ellis out of St. Louis. Another guy I don't think that really is on the level. Clay Stevenson. And the only other guy that was claimed by Carolina, another playoff team, was Brandon Bussi. I think it'd be hilarious because I know how much the Filipino community loves that word. Bussi. It's also a fun name to say. But if the Flames don't believe Ivan Prosvetov is the way, or hey, maybe you need some seasoning in the AHL before getting called back up. But regardless, you need a backup goaltender when you are playing this many games back to back. Hey, I'd even say if you had claimed one of these guys and sent Daniil Miramanov through waivers, I would have been okay carrying 3 goaltenders with how much the Flames are playing. Matt C. with the comment here, do you think Cooley plays tomorrow? I think he has to. Do I think the Flames can win a game with Devin Cooley as their goaltender? Not so sure, but I think he has to play. And hey, maybe the Flames start playing in front of him, realizing that Dustin Wolf isn't back there to save the day. Oh, I forgot to throw the overtime graphic on. Thanks, guys, for telling me. Honestly, I think we played so far out of our skin last year that set us up for disappointment this season. This isn't a playoff roster. Anyone watching knows this. Yeah, I agree. I've said that throughout the show. But I also think that this roster is better than what showed on the ice today for 40 minutes. And hopefully Conroy starts acting accordingly. I agree with 90% of what you're saying there, Matt. However, now that we're in overtime, I'm going to bring up something that I heard on 32 Thoughts. And that is the whole retention sort of deal that was closed mostly in this most recent CBA signing / rejigging. I apologize, I didn't realize my headspace was that bad. That had been dropping down on the scoreboard below me. Craig Conroy needs to listen to 32 Thoughts because there was a reader comment talking about how the whole double retention doesn't work because you need to have that gap in between teams retaining. If the Flames really do want to move Rasmus Andersson for the most amount, they might need to try and talk to somebody like a San Jose Sharks. about moving Rasmus sooner than later. And I know Rasmus has the no trade, so maybe I'm barking up the wrong tree. But if we can move Rasmus sooner than later to allow another team to retain, and hey, maybe we take up some retention on the guy coming back, so that in 75 days, we can flip that player for maximized assets. Maybe that's something Craig Conrad and co. need to think about. Because I thought that was a really interesting point. Like, they've tried to close this loophole. Oh my god, I can't stay in frame today. Tried to close the loophole of the double retentions. But as we saw with the Toronto Maple Leafs and Robida Island with the injuries, or sending players to the IR just to bring them back in the playoffs, there are holes in any CBA. The Flames need to be the ones smart enough to figure out how to break that to get themselves into a better position for the future. But I think that's enough for today, because we're going to have another one 24 hours from now, or I guess maybe 23 hours, because this is a 40-minute show. We're back again tomorrow as the Flames head on down to Utah to take on the Utah Hockey... No, wait, they're the Mammoth. Right. The Mammoth aren't just a lacrosse team anymore. What version of the Flames shows up to play that hockey game? I don't know. Hopefully one that leaves me with a better taste in my mouth than today. For myself and everyone else at the Game Over Network, thank you so much for tuning in with us tonight. Hopefully we will see you again tomorrow night, or hopefully we're celebrating a better performance than whatever that was today.